I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 122. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode. Well, I am coming off of a bunch of private client retreats that have been done at the turn of the quarter. And as I record this, I was sitting down thinking about what do I want to share? I have a bit of a backlog of topics I could share with you, but the thing that felt most relevant that I wanted to download from the experience I've had recently in the last few weeks is a topic that is very important and seems so simple, but it isn't acknowledged or being done the way that it should be by most. So we're going to talk about it here. If you are listening to this podcast, this will apply. I don't care where you are in your journey. I don't care if you're a law student. I don't care if you are a firm owner that's pretty new, it's just lifted off the ground recently, or if you've had your firm for 35 years. It doesn't matter. This, what we're talking about today, applies. We talk a lot on this podcast, or I have in the past, about goals. What you're shooting for. And I've dug pretty deep into that topic, but there's a specific emphasis about setting a goal that I'm going to dig into today, because if it isn't done, if it isn't acknowledged, if this isn't followed, you will not be as effective or as efficient at getting what you want. People say they have goals, but then they'll write down, if I say, okay, what are your goals? And they'll answer some questions through a form that I have, like a new private client. And their goals will be very abstract, which is good. They have clarity about what they want to create, where they want to be, what they want things to feel like, to look like. And that's good, but that's not a goal. A goal is very specific. If you've properly set a goal, it's very easy to measure your progress towards it. But here's the thing I want to share with you today that I'm hoping creates some clarity for you and how you are handling this in your own world, if you are setting good goals in your own world. Setting a goal is like looking at a map and putting a pin in the map as a destination that you are working towards. Having that specificity allows you to line up with it and head towards it in a streamlined way. I didn't say cakewalk, and it's not a perfect smooth curve up and to the right, but it allows you to head towards that pin in the map, that point, with a greater sense of efficiency than you could have otherwise, because you know exactly where you're headed. Putting a pin in the map, choosing a point as a very specific target that you are shooting for, that has a number attached to it so that you know when you were there, when you arrived at the destination, it cuts the crap out of your journey. And when I say crap, what I mean by that is if you don't have a specific point or a specific target that you are aiming for, then you tend to be more all over the place than you would need to be because you don't know what you're working towards. So when you make decisions about the effort that you're going to put forth to be able to get yourself to whatever it is, the next level, then if you don't have a pin in the map, you do a little bit over here, it's good for the firm. A little over here, that's good for the firm. A little over here, that's good for the firm. And you don't create this efficient route towards where you want to go. Because listen, there's 100 things that we could do at any given point to grow our business or to do with something good inside the firm or inside the business that makes sense for the business. But if you don't have a specific point in the destination, you don't know what to prioritize of those 100 things. And so you'll do a little over here, a little over here, a little over here, a little over there. And it's not that it isn't good, but it's very inefficient if you are trying to move the needle on something. So you have to put a pin in the map. You have to choose your destination. Here's the other thing too. I'm sure I've said this at some point on the podcast, but it's not going to go unsaid here. When you get in your car and you want to go somewhere and you want the GPS to tell you how to get there, or like if you're like me, I put the destination in the GPS in the car because it will give me different routes depending on traffic, et cetera, et cetera. But if I don't put a destination into the GPS, it can't give me anything. And if I don't have a specific destination that I'm heading for, I'll just meander and drive around aimlessly. It doesn't mean I'll never get there, but it's very aimless. It's like, yeah, I want to head in that general direction. Okay, well, I'll start heading in that general direction, but it's way less efficient. If I have a destination in the GPS can give me very specific routes that I can choose in order to get to the destination. It is the same thing with setting goals. And I want everyone to hear me say this because I can't believe how many new people I encounter who've been listening to this podcast for 2 years. And there's no shame in this, but if you can hear me right now, then please put a destination in your GPS. Because when I meet someone who's been listening to the podcast since its inception, and they don't have a specific goal, but they do know the general direction they want to head in, that's usually very common. People know that. Then the truth is you're burning time and resources because you aren't being specific enough to get organized enough to figure out the route that you need to take and prioritize this and then this and then this and then this and then this of the list of 100 things you could do. It sort of brings your focus in a way that allows you to put one foot in front of the other in a much smarter way, in a much more efficient way than otherwise. So I hope you see that, yeah, we all want to grow. We all want more organization in the firm. We all want great team members with an awesome culture inside of the business. We all want freedom and time. We don't want to be grinding it out all the way until we're ready to retire. No one wants that. So yeah. When you say that, like, I want X and you describe generally what you want, that's what everybody wants. You've got to get more specific. Do yourself a favor and get more specific about the next destination that you're shooting for, not the end all be all. I don't expect people to say and to have clarity to be able to say, this is where I want to be. This is exactly what I want things to look like in 5 years. That, I get it. There's a general direction you want to head, and you can sort of state that more generally. But what's the next destination you need to get to in order to be on track for that general state that you're talking about? Name that next destination. Because then this allows you to do 2 things. Then you can reverse engineer from that next destination. You can work backwards to figure out what does that mean needs to happen in the coming months. Meaning you will know exactly what projects need to be focused on and implemented. Of the 100 that you could do, you will know exactly what needs to come first. Oh, if I want to get to that destination, we need to have this, and this. All the other things are important, but that's not first. This is first if I want to get to this next destination, this next spot, this next number that I want to hit. And on my terms. If I hit that number and X, Y, and Z isn't dialed in, if these processes aren't put in place, we're going to be in trouble. So if I am shooting for that number, these things need to come first. It becomes very clear. But when you say, I want to head in this direction, it is not as clear what you should focus on first. And if you think it is, you're likely wrong because you aren't lining up with anything. So how do you know what you should go first on? It's more just like you're picking out of preference what you want to work on. But if you pick the next destination you want to hit and you think, okay, in order to do that, I've got to do X, Y, and Z, it will just hit your brain. You will know exactly what needs to happen in order to get to that next spot, that next target. The other thing it allows you to do is that when you reach that next destination, sort of that milestone towards more generally what you want, you'll get yourself there, and then it becomes very obvious what the next milestone should be. Because once you get yourself to that next destination, that's a whole new vantage point. You now can see things you couldn't have seen before. You now have lessons under your belt that you couldn't have learned otherwise because you're kind of meandering just towards growth instead of saying, no, this is the target I'm hitting and I'm lining myself up for that growth. You have a different set of experiences, knowledge, and view from the place that you got yourself that makes it easier to say, okay, now here's the next destination, the next target that I am shooting for. towards the bigger vision and the bigger general thing that I want. But people are afraid to claim that number. People are afraid for so many different reasons to just put their stake in the ground, to say, no, that point, to put the pin in the map and say, that is what we're going for. Now let's do this. Let's do it our way. Let's get these systems and processes like very clearly. These are the things that need to happen if we want to get ourselves there. So let's go all in. Let's get this stuff done. These things, these are the levers that we can pull in order to get ourselves to the destination. These things that we are saying are so important. It's the vehicle to the destination. And then you'll get there and you'll have a new vantage point. But people don't do this for themselves. And it's so funny. It's like it's easy to hide from yourself when you don't put a pin in the map. It's easy to just keep doing the good things, keep showing up, implement this over here, implement this over there. Like, it's easy to feel okay about what you're doing. But if you're listening to this podcast, you are not that kind of a person. There's no chance you would be around listening to me if that was you. You are someone who likes to see what they're made of. And if you want to see what you're made of, you have to put a pin in the map. You have to determine your next destination. You don't have to know the end all be all, but you need to know the next thing that you're shooting for very specifically. It needs to be a number, and it can be a number with conditions, right? But it needs to be a number. You are in control of this. You get to determine this. But as long as you're just heading in a general direction of growth, you won't see what you're made of. You won't. So I wanted to do this podcast so that everybody listening can determine for themselves. And imagine if I was sitting there with you and looking at, if you have written down, if you haven't written these down, you know that's a good sign that you haven't gotten clear enough. But if I'm looking at your plans that you've written down, like these are the things you are shooting for specifically, if you think for a second that I might say, I don't think that's specific enough, you're probably right. Because it is black and white if you are being specific enough or not. So have you been specific enough with the target that you are setting? And if not, why not? What are you afraid of? Why haven't you done it? And if you're not afraid of anything, it just didn't dawn on you, let this be the thing that wakes you up. Pick a number, put a pin in the map, and that way you can figure out what route you're going to take. There's different routes you can take, but they will all be routes to the destination instead of just meandering and doing this over here and this over here. And just people want to say, well, that's organically growing. What is that? That just is something that sounds pretty so that you can feel good about what you're doing. You get to decide if you want to feel good about what you're doing or not. But don't lie to yourself and say that just me organically evolving is going to allow you to see what you're made of. Nope. You want to see what you're made of? Put a pin in the map and line yourself up with it and go all in and go. That's how you do that. All right. So if you can't tell, I'm super passionate about this. People don't do this enough. And because of that, they won't even begin to fulfill their own potential and do what they're meant to do. They will settle for mediocrity unknowingly and maybe unconsciously, but that's still what will happen. They will settle for this mediocrity instead of saying, nope, this is what we're doing. Let's go. All right, everybody. That's all I have for you this week. Imagine me sitting with you. And if you haven't written it out, just tell me. If you were telling me about what you want, can you hear the vagueness? Can you hear the gray area? And how can you decide, just pick a number that you are shooting for? And again, it's not all about the numbers. You guys have heard me say that on the podcast before. It isn't about the numbers, but that quote that I've shared with you before about the smartest people on the planet are always reaching for the next rung on the ladder, next pin in the map. But they know it's not about the next rung. It's about the stretch. That is true. And if you do not put a pin in the map, that you have nothing to stretch towards specifically enough that it's going to create that stretch. It is about the stretch because you gain this skill set and you develop yourself to the point to be able to get to the next level. That's what it's about. It's not about the number. It's not about the goal. And so if that's also, I should say, if that's you and you're scared to say a number because you don't know if it's too big, you don't know if it's a good enough goal, it doesn't matter. Just pick a number and go all in towards that number and determine the effort that's going to be required if you want to be able to reach that number. then that is what it's about. It's about the effort that you put in and the experience that you gain along the way and the organization and the systems that you do along the way. All of that is what it's about. It's not about the freaking number. So if you get stuck on, well, I don't want to pick a number. It's not about the money. It's not about the number. Exactly. But if you don't pick a number, then you can't really get to the meat of what it is about, which is the effort and the action that it takes and who you have to become in order to reach that number. None of that gets to happen because you can just keep meandering and growing bit by bit, slowly, and you won't ever really see what you're made of. So put a destination in the map. I don't care how much anxiety it gives you. You have to become the kind of person that can handle the anxiety, that can breathe into it and move in that direction anyway, even though it's very uncomfortable, which that'll be coming up on a future podcast. We'll talk more about that. But don't not put a pin in the map. Don't not choose your next destination. I had a friend ask me the other day who's extremely successful in business, what's your goal? And they meant destination in the map. And I know what my goal is, but it's like the next destination in the map. I don't know about end all be all. I don't know. And I said to her, I told her that you're going to roll your eyes at me because you're going to tell me it's too small, but it's my next goal. And as we started talking about that more, it was a really fun conversation because the truth is, I don't believe that's all I'm capable of. I just know that's my next destination. And as we talked through it, I mean, she's going to make over $50 million in her business this year. That's how wild that is. And she was making 6 years ago, $300,000. So you can see how fast her business has grown. She has a very different business than mine, but she still had to handle that growth. It's a huge deal. And she said, no, I never saw myself here before. I just knew the next and then the next and then the next and then the next. And here we are. And at some point I had a much grander vision and I'm leaning into that. I'm determining the milestones along the way, but you don't have to see that. And I knew that, but it was a very fun conversation with someone who has lived it all the way up to 50 million and is still going. I share that conversation so that you just have another example to see that it really is about putting a pin in the map just with your next destination. If you know a number that you want to hit, like an actual goal that you want to hit way, way, way out, that's fine. But you got to work backwards and figure out what's the next milestone along the way. So if you don't have your next milestone determined, if you don't have your next target determined, the destination, the next destination in the map determined, you need to decide what that is and just claim it. Because then you can line yourself up. And once you get there, then you can pick the next one. And once you get there, then you can pick the next one. And the other thing I want you to see through this is for someone who's making $50 million a year and that's only going up, obviously it's not about the money anymore. It never was. That's the thing. Once your needs are met, once you got shelter and food and you aren't desperate for things that money can provide, it's not really about the money anymore. So no matter if that's at $100,000 a year or 50 million, it's not about the number. It's about the stretch that it's required of you to become the kind of person that can create that kind of value in the world and see that come back into the business. But you can't do that. You can't just shoot for the goal and make it about the number. If you do that, then yeah, you're approaching it wrong and it's fleeting. You might get the money through the door, but then you didn't become the kind of person that you need to be, and the firm didn't become the kind of firm that it needed to be in order to handle that business. And so it's going to go away. It's not sustainable. So it really is about the stretch. It is about what you have to become. You as the owner, but also the firm, what it has to become. I don't want you to get mixed up with me saying you have to have a destination in the map that it's about the number. I think you get that, but I really want you to let that sink in. You have to choose the number because it lines everything up so well for yourself. And it just cuts out the noise and lets you get on your way to becoming who you need to be and what the firm needs to become in order to handle the next level of business. But it isn't the end all be all. And the reason I'm telling you to pick the next destination is because otherwise you waste your precious time. It's not about hurrying, but you don't want to waste time spinning and meandering along the way, no matter how busy you feel. It is spinning and meandering instead of getting to work, doing and becoming what's required in order to hit that target, to get to that destination. And then you do it again after that. And then you do it again after that. It's about the process. It's about the stretch to get to the destination. But there's nothing to stretch for unless you've put a pin in the map, unless you've chosen a target. Okay, everyone, if you haven't done it, do it. Okay? Pretend I'm sitting with you. Cut the crap. Cut through the noise of your head, all the reasons why you shouldn't do it, or you don't know if you can, or you don't know if it's the right one. None of it. Just cut through the noise, determine a target, and then figure out what it's going to take to get there. And that's the only thing you need to focus on. And once you get there, you lift your head and you reevaluate, you pick your next target, and then you have new vantage, you have new things you want to do, you have new experiences under you, and you do it again. It's such a cool, beautiful, fun, awesome cycle, but you got to pick a target. Have a wonderful week, everyone. I'll see you here next Tuesday. Hey there. If you enjoyed this podcast, I highly recommend you come and check out Mastery Group. It is where owner attorneys come together to study this material, apply it, and thus create really big results for their firm and for their life. So come on over, velocitywork.com/join to get more information and get started. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.